You can go down the financial planning road and get very specific with some very specific future goals. Here it is in a nutshell. For every $3,000 a month you're looking to replace from traditional employment, you need to save $1 million. Let me say that again. In that later barrel, whatever you do for a living today, whatever income you're creating today, if you're trying to fill up a later barrel that is going to replace said income today, for every $3,000 of spendable income a month you'd like to have, you need to have about $1 million set aside, and it should last you the entirety of that later barrel. Did you know that I have 3 really complicated relationships in my life?
With me, myself, and I?
Close. My relationship with money, my relationship with people, and my relationship with self. And they're all connected together because when my relationship with money got out of whack, it totally had an impact on those other relationships. That, my friend, is what we call having financial sobriety.
So who are you?
I'm Matthew Grishman. Who are you?
Jim Gebhardt.
And we're a couple of financial advisors trying to have an untraditional conversation about our favorite topic, money.
Let's go. So what is on your positive focus or gratitude list? Positive focus being not necessarily gratitude, but something that you're looking forward to or you're excited about, or gratitude.
I have both. I'm grateful that something, how many times have we talked about how long it took to teach our little leaguers to catch with 2 hands? The reminder of catch with 2 hands over and over.
1.4 billion.
Right. Good guess. I think it was closer to 1.5. I am grateful that I had my catch with 2 hands moment 3 days ago with our friend John on the golf course. I have been one of the world's most prolific slicers, right? As you're very well aware, I'm not sharing anything with you you are not painfully aware of. And something clicked when John showed me how to turn my hands over as if I were playing tennis. There was something about that analogy where I am so grateful he connected the dots between something I understand to something I don't understand, and I feel like this whole new renewed sense of confidence when I'm out on a golf course now.
It gives you hope. We're going to put a little flat piece out there with the flag to give you hope.
Right. How many times are we going to do it? We're going to do it once?
No, we're going to do it 18 freaking times.
There you go. A little homage to our old friend, Robin Williams. Yes. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for John's patience and your patience all these years and helping me try to understand this game of golf. And something I'm really looking forward to is an opportunity to get out on a driving range and actually practice some of this stuff.
There you go.
I can't remember the last time I looked forward to a driving range experience.
But that's awesome.
And now I can't wait. How about you?
I got a long list, but I'm pretty excited that Emily's moving home for a couple of years.
Nice.
She is going to graduate school kind of in the backyard, 20, 30 minutes down the road, going to live at home. I know that will have its pluses and minuses at times and will be a whole new re-indoctrination to, a young adult living in our now remodeled home in what is a guest room and not necessarily her bedroom.
Right.
But having her under the roof will be nice. Absolutely.
Nice.
I'm very much looking forward to that.
Is she unpacking suitcases and putting clothes in drawers and closets?
Oh, most certainly.
Oh, nice.
Most certainly.
Oh, very cool.
Right now, she's on a very fun road trip where she is checking off a couple of national parks, seeing a teammate that lives up in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I just got a text that she was at the Hoover Dam and then making their way down. Going to visit another teammate, I think it is, in Omaha, and end up in St. Louis, where her BFF and teammate is returning after 5th-year graduation. So they're delivering her to St. Louis with there's 4 of them on the road trip. I've notified all the proper authorities.
Wow!
And I'm hoping it's a great adventure.
That's awesome. That's very cool. How long are they going to be on the road?
Exactly 1 week.
Wow. Very cool.
So I'm not sure. It's kind of a new chapter where I have a child that is out floating in the ether, and I don't really know where she is, where she's staying, and she's an adult and she'll figure it out.
That's awesome. That's very cool. What are we doing today?
What we want to talk about today is a bit of a recap on where we've been. And I don't mean that in terms of all 742 episodes. I mean here recently
thank heavens.
with the topics that we've been covering where we went really deep on bonds, and then we went really deep on stocks, and then not quite as deep on the concept that we're pretty passionate about called buffered ETFs. So now we want to kind of put a nice bow around all of it and talk about, now what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
We got some of each. We got bags of money. And how do we put that in a framework that makes sense? Because it's been a while since we've talked about our old friends at ING, but they used to have that great commercial where people were walking around with a 4-foot number.
Oh, yeah.
3-dimensional 4-foot number on their shoulder.
What's your number?
What's your number? Hey, what's your number?
That was a catchy commercial.
Well, we're talking about it 15 years later.
Right? They did a really good job with it.
And when clients come see us, they have both what their number is right now in terms of what they've saved and accumulated, and then a lot of them often have some number that they're kind of shooting at. But how do you organize that? How do you
come up with that? That's part of it too.
How do you come up with it? First of all, is that is the planning work that we do, right? That's the modeling and the scenario planning. And for those that are a little bit familiar with financial planning land, that's what's called Monte Carlo simulation, which helps put some numbers and probability on what does your financial roadmap look like.
And how successful could it be based on how you want to use that money in your life.
Correct.
As great of a commercial as that was, and I know you and I have talked about this before, I give them a lot of credit because of how catchy it was. It got people's eyes. It got people thinking about, ooh, what is my number in retirement? How much money do I have to save? It was a very pivotal time because for decades, our parents' generation and before never really had to worry about what's your number.
Accumulating.
All you had to do was show up to work, and there was a lovely gold watch and a pension at the end. ING did a really nice job of, like, visually, like, wake up, pay attention. You have a massive responsibility if you want to support yourself once you're done earning a traditional paycheck. So for that, lots of love and gratitude for what they did. On the other side of the coin,
however,
it was also a disservice because I think psychologically, they could have put it, it's not a disservice. They could have gone deeper. And that's what I think you and I get an opportunity to do right now is let's take a 15-year-old concept and let's take it a little deeper, because when I see somebody on the television with a number on their shoulder of $1.4 million, it gives me this feeling like all of that money needs to be here and serving me now and treated the same way. All 1.4 million of those dollars. And I think something you and I have learned, practically speaking, with the job that we do, that not every single one of those 1.4, 2.4, 3.4, or 10.4, whatever your retirement barrels look like, need to be treated the same way. They need to be treated differently to support you in different times of retirement.
So all the consulting and coaching and small group breakouts that we did to come up with the names for these categories have been tested, and there's a funny to that which we're going to get to, but they've been tested in the trenches with clients now for quite a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
So the names of these barrels are what we call it the money barrels exercise, and the barrels are the now barrel, the soon barrel, the later barrel, and in a lot of cases, the never barrel. So what does that mean? Well, what you and I do with our clients is once we get through all of that planning and Monte Carlo simulation, is we start to look at their portfolio as it exists today and help assign different time periods to when they're going to need this money. And the biggest takeaway that we've seen from this is how it unlocks people's kind of awareness and thinking around how the portfolio can be designed if I don't need that slice of the portfolio for 7+ years, 10+ years, 15+ years. What if I do have never money? Like, what is that?
Never money.
Yeah. What's never money?
Well, we might want to talk about that because, boy, That could be a hard concept to get your mind around.
Right.
Is having money that I never intend to use.
All right, so let's start at the other end of the spectrum then with the now money. Let's start at the simple end of the curve,
The front end of the curve.
the front end of the curve.
Well, I appreciate the last handful of episodes where we've talked about bonds, stocks, buffered ETFs, because this gives us a way, and we even talked about cash a while back, because
And a wee bit of real estate.
because we're now talking about how we organize those different types of investments based on the time frame in which we might use them. Different investments are appropriate for different time frames. So when we're on the very front end of the time frame, let's say money, if our number is, let's call it $3.5 million, how much of that $3.5 million do I need to allocate to what you just called our now barrel, right? Our now barrel being the next 0 to, 2 years?
In a lot of client cases, it is. It's 1 to 2 years worth of cash.
So the question then, I'll ask you, you tell me how you feel about this. If the stock market were to get all crazy and fuzzy-wuzzy, up and down, volatile,
That doesn't happen.
unpredictable,
When does
scary.
that happen?
Rarely.
Come
ever.
on.
How many years worth of living would you like to have sitting aside in cash at all times so that no matter what's happening in the market, you're feeling okay?
Oh, at least a year, probably 2.
Okay. So this is where the now barrel, right? If we've got this targeted number of a few $1 million, we've got to figure out, setting aside in that now barrel, what do I need for the next year or two to feel comfortable no matter what's going on with the rest of my money, no matter what's going on with the market? Because one of the things you and I believe that I think makes us rather unique is that cash is an asset class.
What does that mean?
Well, there's lots of different asset classes. We've talked about in our bond episode, our stock episode, our buffered ETF episode, that asset
Real estate,
classes,
businesses.
real estate, large cap stocks, mid cap stocks, small cap stocks, different types of bonds, they're all different types of asset classes. And generally in our industry, cash is rarely looked at as an asset class. It's looked at as a temporary parking spot and not something that long-term serves any purpose. But you and I have found in a practical sense, that's not necessarily the case, that in a practical sense, cash is an asset class that serves a very important role.
We are very passionate about that. And we've experienced it now, given the ha-ha of the market. The market doesn't do anything but go up. We've had plenty of instances where when clients have had cash in their now barrel, otherwise known as on the sidelines, that it has given them peace of mind. No greater example of that than during COVID.
Oh, boy.
And for our clients where they embraced the money barrel conversation and they had that kind of cash. Now, the one slight caveat to that is I don't have 1 to 2 years worth of cash. I have a job.
You have a job and you've got credit cards with lots of room on them.
If it really came to that.
Sure.
But I have a job that still pays me something, and that job is not likely going away. If I were retired, I would feel much more comfortable having a year or two's worth of cash on the side because there's no more goes-ins.
Well,
right.
So here's one of the things before we get too much further, because you just brought up some really cool stuff here with the Now Barrel. If you go to our website, yourfinancialsobriety.com, and you click on the resources tab, you can actually pull up a PDF of the money barrels so that you can follow along with us in this conversation and get a really good visual of what it is that Jim and I are talking about here. So push pause for a second, go to the website, pull it up. You can even do it right on your mobile device that you're probably listening to us on right now, and you can have that visual. Again, yourfinancialsobriety.com, resources, money barrels. All right, you got your money barrels in front of you. Now let's get back to looking at that now barrel. So you talked about, I have a job. I have cash flow coming in. You and I have always said that as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we've got all the job security in the world we could ever want, really, because it's on us, right? So I'm with you on that. You and I have very predictable cash flow that comes in. So part of this money barrels exercise is defining what fills that now barrel. Is there something that is filling it, like a paycheck, Social Security, rental income, business income of some sort? You and I have that business income filling it up right now. Or is it the type of barrel where you need to allocate a year or two because you're in retirement, you don't have a lot of income coming in, and we need to allocate that to, say, a money market position that'll pay us a little bit of interest, but as you like to say, let me be impossible to misunderstand. The goal of the Now Barrel is not to grow. It's not even to earn interest. If we can, that's a bonus.
That's a lovely bonus, thanks to the Fed as of about a year ago.
Oh, we're back to the way it should always be, but we're always going to think of that as a bonus. The purpose of the Now Barrel is to be there. Peace of mind, 1 to 2 years worth of living expenses just in case.
Particularly if you're retired.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because we like to think of this, and this is a phrase that I know we've used, but we can't use it enough, is building in a position of strength.
Mm-hmm.
Putting yourself in a position of strength to where you are not forced to make economic or financial decisions otherwise, right? So to me, the two barbells of the barrels, there's 4 barrels, those tend to be the easiest to identify as you're doing this exercise. So, maybe it's 3 months worth of cash. Some of the traditional financial metrics on this is 3 months worth of cash if you have dual income, right? Two partners, 2 spouses, both working.
Sure.
6 months if it's just one spouse that is working. But then it becomes your own comfort level.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what you got to ask yourself.
We have older clients that have 3 and 4 and 5 years worth of cash. They just, they don't need to take the risk, and it just gives them so much more peace of mind.
Yes.
The very other end of the spectrum, being the never barrel, is the other easy one to kind of walk through, because for a lot of people, it's their home. They don't plan to leave the home. The home is going to go to whomever, the kids, let's charity.
Let's do a little, I guess, re-education here. If I'm sounding a little, I don't know what the right word is, righteous, I don't know, about re-educating that never barrel a little bit, we have developed this insatiable desire to consume equity in our home as a society, living on the equity in our home. I mean, that when interest rates were dropping, people were doing cash out refis, they were buying boats and cars and all sorts of goofy stuff with, and guilty as charged. I mean, I lived through some of that, and in my 30s and early 40s with the first house I owned, I did some goofy things with the equity in my house.
Sure.
Real estate all of a sudden became an asset class, and it became such a hot asset class because of where interest rates were, that everything that looked and smelled like real estate became an investment asset class, including the house we live in. So what we're helping people, I think, rediscover is that home of ours, that asset home of ours, is really meant to be something we live in, not something we live on. And it becomes the ultimate, even as a never asset. And what we mean by never is never intending to live on the asset because we're living in the asset.
Not consuming the asset.
Correct. It ultimately becomes that backstop that way, way down the road, if some of the toughest financial stuff happens, which we've talked about in those kind of no-go years of retirement, where all of a sudden now we've consumed most of our wealth to maintain our health over all these years, we've got that asset as the ultimate backstop. If we
it
have
comes to that.
Right. Otherwise, it becomes this lovely never asset that gets a nice little step up in cost basis and passes on to our next generation.
Right. The other thing that we've seen a number of times is, a family vacation property, shares in a family-held business. We have some clients that have done some pretty sophisticated planning
Sure.
and have Roth IRAs that they've converted from old IRAs, paid the tax. We've taken an approach where we're actually investing that pretty aggressively.
Yeah.
But it's really in the never barrel in the context of that client using it during their lifetime.
Yeah.
It's intended to go to the next generation of their children. And so it goes in that never barrel, and it has a very long time horizon attached to it.
Right.
This little exercise just right there tends to free up people with how they think about the composition of where their assets are today and how they're being managed. And I mean, we have a number of older clients where we've had conversations with them about, okay, Betty, you're not going to need this IRA realistically. Based on your portfolio, you're just going to take your RMDs out of this.
So you're suggesting we invest it differently than we would, say, the Now Barrel that we might need in the next 3 to 6 months.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of conversation, dialogue around that discussion. And that never barrel, also from a position of strength, is realistically money that they're never going to need but it's certainly accessible and available to them if, for whatever reason, they did.
I would argue, because who doesn't like to argue on a Tuesday? I would argue that you and I are even in real time starting to change the way we think about how we use that never barrel. If we were sitting here a year ago talking about it, it was just that. It was never, ever, ever money. That was just assumed to go to your children or whomever your beneficiaries are. We got our noses, oh boy, stuck in another book.
Oh, yeah.
That has kind of changed the way we see this never barrel. And when we talk about never money, the idea of never using this money isn't as appealing to us as it once was, because we can't unsee this book called Die with Zero. And it's a whole different way of thinking about your wealth and how you use your wealth to live your very best life. And this intention during your life, if there's this intention of, I want to be able to do something for my children and pass this wealth down to my children, rather than leaving it for them at the very end when they might be in their 60s or 70s, actually using some of that never barrel money now while it can be really useful and impactful in the lives of your children. And you get to be alive to see that happening.
There's a stat from the book that I remember that was the studies that were done on the average age of someone that inherits money. The amount of money is irrelevant, but the average age was in their early 60s. And a separate study was done to look at what is the age range of when an inheritance would be the most meaningful.
Oh, I bet you it's a little
and it was
before
like
then.
32 to 38.
Sure. Well, think about our lives.
Right.
How much more impactful. I mean, that's, the kids are growing and there's stuff going on with the house and saving for college and all these. Absolutely. There's huge, meaningful impact at that point.
So just to make one clarification here, it's not dying with zero in the context of trying to spend your last dollar per se when you go on the ground. Now, the author does, what's the author's name again?
Bill Perkins.
That's right, Bill Perkins.
And the subtitle kind of hints to what you're saying right now, right? Die with zero, getting all you can from your money and your life.
Right.
So it's using all of your financial resources in a way that maximizes your life energy, your life potential, your life experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a conversation with a client last week who has a $2 million Morgan Stanley account that she inherited. And she's just it just sits there, and it's not meant for she and her partner. The only purpose that it has is to eventually go to her kids.
Which, let's face it, our industry's done a brilliant job of supporting that concept.
Well, sure, because they're going to collect their fee on it till kingdom come.
Exactly.
Right?
On a growing asset.
On a larger asset
it's
every
wonderful.
year. Yeah. Not every year. Sorry, compliance. It doesn't go up every year.
It does go up more than it goes down generally over time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I was challenging her to open her thinking to using some of this money now.
Yeah, you never told me how that conversation went.
Well, I reran all the numbers, and they can't necessarily give it all away right now, but they could actively be doing the $18,000 annual gifts.
Sure.
That's certainly something while their kids are in that age I just described, getting married, buying houses, having children, buying minivans, all those, that, $18,000 times 2 or 3 or 4 people in a family would have some real meaningful impact.
What you're saying is going through this exercise of taking all of the wealth you need to accumulate to support everything that's important to you, the people, the places, the experiences, the aspirations, everything you want to support with your wealth, sitting down and going through this exercise of identifying the different time frames of when you're going to need this wealth and how you're going to need to use it is really the key to identifying if you're someone who wants to support children, family members, other people with your wealth. This is going to give you a really good idea of how much I have to do that with.
100%.
And do it from a position of strength.
Yeah, this is a very thoughtful, intentional exercise because it's getting you to think about your money, right? Instead of it just being a number on your shoulder that you're walking around with, you're now starting to recognize, okay, we've got 6 months worth of cash. Boy, I'd really feel good with 1 year's worth of cash.
There you go.
Right? Now, I never really, in my younger years, I never really even thought about that, right? But now I've seen it with enough clients, and my parents were a wonderful example. Dad always kept at least 3 years worth of cash.
Mm-hmm.
And what it let him do
In his left pocket. He used to walk around with it.
100%.
Walking around money.
Why not? And what it allowed him to do in his later years was he was 100% stocks.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, first of all, I'm 90 whatever. I don't have a 10-year window, but I got 3 years worth of cash, so that takes me to 90 plus 3, 92 plus 3, whatever.
Sure.
And I watched how well that worked for mom and dad, that we started encouraging that more and more with clients. And it's really interesting when you introduce the idea to somebody because they're like, I can do that?
Sure.
I'm allowed to do that? Wait a second.
Uh-huh.
I'd really like that. And let's do it.
If you're with us up to this point and you have gotten this money barrel piece in front of you, think to yourself right now, what would make me feel financially secure if something, some what hit the fan? I lost my job. Major life transition changes. Something happens. One of the big D's, right? We talk about these big life-changing D's: death, divorce, diagnosis. I'm done with my job, right? We have those moments where unintentionally, whether the employer or we choose to be done, right? If something happens, how much money would I feel secure having in cash? What does that look like? Is it 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years?
Right.
Write that number down. Write it right on that money barrel. Now, after we've gotten that, now let's look out.
What's that?
Once we've got that, the now barrel.
The now
yeah,
barrel.
we've got
Okay.
it. Once
Yep.
we've got that,
Yep.
now let's look out. And what does our life look like soon?
Well, what about the never barrel? That's easy to plug in.
Sure.
If you own a home, just
Sure.
plug your home equity into that for now.
Okay.
If you have other real estate, if you have another business asset and you don't ever intend to sell it, you can go put that in the never barrel.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the Roth conversion and all that stuff. Just, you can kind of build the two ends of the barbell, and now we can focus in the middle.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to know on the Roth how much of that goes in the never barrel until we've done
100%.
the two middle barrels, right? Because we need to know what we need. What do we need to support the people, places, experiences that bring us the greatest amount of joy and what we're hoping to accomplish in our retirement years. So after that now barrel is fully funded, now we start looking out and do this with us, right? Get in your own head, get in your own vision for what you see tomorrow looking like. I know that's what I do when you and I are sitting here and you're sharing some of these anecdotes with clients. I'm kind of in my own head thinking. Sometimes I'll take a little note here on my iPad. Ooh, I didn't think to put that in the soon barrel, right? And that's where we are. We're now talking about the soon barrel.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, let's go up to 7 years out, because when we think in terms of time frames, something that's 7 years out, there's
Very hard to get your head around.
It is, but if we have any plans, like for example, my children, Miles is this close to going off and working for the airlines.
Mm-hmm.
He's a flight instructor here in Sacramento now. I think he just hit about 1,200 hours. So 300 hours from now, he's potentially going to get relocated somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas has made it clear he wants to live in the mountains and always be in the snow. Who knows where that might change every single season. Miles will probably have a little bit more permanence with where he's going. So I'm sitting here in my mind thinking out over the next 3 to 5 years, I might want to have the financial capability of relocating. There's cost involved in that. I don't know if we would sell the house in Rockland or if we would turn it into a rental or keep it for ourselves if Lucas is still in the area. But there's an expense potentially. There's something that Amy and I can set as a savings goal 3, 4, 5 years down the road, right? We can see that. I would love to have a trailer again, a travel trailer.
Yes.
We miss that.
Yes, you do.
Right? Is that something I want a year from now? Probably not, but we got bathrooms to do between now and then.
There you go.
But we need to redo our bathrooms. I'd love a new trailer, and the idea of potentially either getting a second place, renting a place for a couple months a year, buying a place, whatever that might look like. I don't even know exactly what it looks like, but I know 3, 4, 5 years down the road,
It's something.
it's something. So
A travel budget.
can I start getting my head around
Right.
how much needs to be in that barrel and what do I need to save? Or of my current savings, of my current money that I've got invested, how much should I potentially carve off to that barrel?
Right.
So think about that. What over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 7 years could potentially be happening in life that could require a couple of dollars being allocated to it?
Maybe it's some weddings.
Whew.
Maybe it's some educations.
All the above.
Maybe it's a travel trailer.
Exactly. What does that look like for you? Now, when we talk about 7-year timeframes, do we have enough time in 7 years to hit the ball out of the park, to swing out of our shoes, to speculate and roll the dice and try to find the next NVIDIA or Tesla stock?
In our humble opinion as risk managers, no.
Yeah. And this is again,
This is a bias that we bring to the table.
yes, and it's trying to connect the dots between all those lovely episodes we did on bonds and stocks and buffered ETFs, is kind of showing you how in a very, very 30,000-foot kind of generic way, this is not meant to be specific
Investment advice.
Yeah, advice for anybody or recommendations on where you use these. But from 30,000 feet, generally speaking, where these different vehicles we've talked about make the most amount of sense. So talking about the Now Barrel, we know that that's going to be cash and money market and really, really generally considered safe assets. When we get into, and very liquid, of course, because we need it potentially now. When we start looking at that soon time frame, right, as Amy and I think about the next 3 to 5 years of our life, it'd be nice to invest that money a little bit and try to get some return on that money. But boy, if markets go sideways, we don't have 10 years to recover.
Sure.
I mean, you and I lived, we lived through it.
Almost twice.
2000 to 2009
Right.
or 01 to 10,
Right.
the S&P returned on an annualized basis 0.
Right.
So there have been times where with 7 years worth of time,
That's not ideal, Bob.
yes, and this is really where some of our buffered ETFs that you and I discussed a few episodes back could really become helpful. It's a way to get some exposure, but mitigate some of the downside risk that we've talked about again.
And cap a little of the upside.
Exactly.
So it's that bowling with bumpers kind of concept, right?
Yes.
Is you've got some protection on the downside, by no means complete protection, and you've got some limitation on the upside.
Yes.
But for a portfolio that is going to be needed 2 to 7 years from now, 2 to 5 years from now, we as risk managers believe that you can't just go step into the batter's box and try to jack everything over the center field fence.
AKA finding the next home run stock.
Home run stock,
Apple,
bet it all,
NVIDIA,
got a
Tesla.
hunch, bet a bunch.
Right.
Right. Just take what in our view would be way too much risk given the time frame that you're looking at.
You have to be conservative with that barrel of money, plain and simple. Whether that's some kind of combination of buffered ETFs with some bonds, some very conservative shorter term bonds. Again, stuff we've already talked about, not looking to repeat all of that, but just kind of giving you a sense of what would be some appropriate vehicles to sit down with a financial advisor and discuss for time frames 2 to 7 years from now, and being able to first identify how much we need to allocate to that barrel, and then what are the appropriate investments that might make sense for that barrel. Okay, so Now Barrel is loaded. We got an idea of what's going on there. Hopefully, we've all taken a minute. We've all gone down the Soon Barrel route. What do we need? What do we see life bringing for us over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years?
Yep.
Now let's start exploring what that later barrel looks like. What
I don't have to worry about that till later.
Oh, there's a part of me that really, really likes that.
I'll deal with it later.
Let's live in the moment.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. There's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got to spend a few minutes talking about later, and then we can go back.
All right.
And so this is the beauty of what we do for a living, and what 400,000 other people who do what we do for a living get the benefit of, is that we're always, at least from our perspective, encouraging people to live in the minute, maximize the minute, stay present, enjoy what's 2 inches in front of your nose. And a couple of times a year, you're going to come into our office, we're going to pick your head up, we're going to go up to 30,000 feet, and we're going to take a look at where you've been and where you'd like to go, and just make some slight adjustments, course correction, so to speak, on that path. So, later barrel, funding the later barrel. This generally becomes your largest barrel because it winds up being the largest period of time that we're saving and investing for. This is generally a barrel that we're going to start tapping 7, 8, 9, 10 years out, but potentially lasting us the rest of our days until we, cross the old Rainbow Bridge.
Right.
So this is the barrel that connects, let's call it about 7 to 10 years from now to the end. Boy, that's a lot.
That's a long time.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, it's a long time.
Yeah. And that's what we're planning for.
The intentionality behind how we construct that part of the portfolio in terms of the barrel, the different barrels, is I think it's fair to say that would have the most amount of risk because we have the most amount of time.
Are you saying I finally get to swing out of my shoes?
To the extent you're comfortable swinging out of your shoes, if you're a risk taker, then that would be the barrel that you would do it in.
Yeah. At least some more risk.
And we've got tools that we're going to talk about today that help us define, the analogy so often we use in the office is, how fast you like to drive.
Right.
Are you a right lane speed limit, maybe 5 miles, a little bit more? Are you in the middle lane going 70, 75? Are you in the left lane going 85? Or are you that person who is weaving in and out of the lanes going 90?
Yeah, I knew you were talking about me in my 20s.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Full disclosure, I did a little bit of that on the way up here today.
Yeah,
I was running late.
Yeah.
It wasn't my best.
Oh.
Trying to make up for lost time.
Uh-oh.
Which we've seen that in our office, too. People come in trying to make up for lost time with their lack of savings or hiccups that they've had or financial setbacks or the market. They were aggressive. The market delivered a down spiral that really kicked them in the teeth.
Sure.
And now they come into our office hoping that we're going to make up for lost time and provide them with some investment recommendation that can bring them forward leaps and bounds.
Sure. So here's kind of a general guideline that I'm going to suggest needs to ultimately be in the later barrel. And don't look at your notes because I didn't write this one down.
No, I'm looking at something else.
Okay, this one's coming fresh, hot off the brain presses. You're going to like this one. We've identified in the now barrel how to calculate that amount, right? And that's part of what we're trying to do here is, okay, if I have a now, a soon, a later, and a never barrel, how much needs to be in each, right? The now barrel is something we helped you figure out based on what's your peace of mind comfort level as far as how much monthly income I need to have available now in case of emergency. The never barrel we set up as just for now, put your real estate there, put some of those never assets, business assets that we know we're not going to consume in our lifetime. We figured out the soon barrel. What are our needs going to be over the next 3 to 7 years?
And I think the one other piece I would add to that real quick is what could that conservatively grow to in that period?
Oh, there you go.
So it's not just you're going to go magically set aside this amount of money, but it's what if you could get a 6 or an 8% return and that money over that 5 to 7 years would grow too. That's, I think, an important component.
In the soon barrel, you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, it's not just allocating X number of dollars and it's going to be in money market.
Sure.
Right.
It is going to grow, hopefully, over that short period of time. But there's also the risk of, because it's a short period of time, there's also the risk of loss. So,
hence buffers.
Yeah. I mean, soon barrel is definitely something that we want to know exactly how much we're going to need for those said future projects and try to save as much to that as possible.
Because it's also going to backfill the now barrel.
Eventually, sure. So with the later barrel, figuring this out, you can go down the financial planning road and get very specific with some very specific future goals. Here it is in a nutshell. For every $3,000 a month you're looking to replace from traditional employment, you need to save $1 million. Let me say that again. In that later barrel, whatever you do for a living today, whatever income you're creating today, if you're trying to fill up a later barrel that is going to replace said income today, for every $3,000 of spendable income a month you'd like to have, you need to have about $1 million set aside, and it should last you the entirety of that later barrel. The time frame of that later barrel.
And that's based on the old 4% rule rounding down.
Correct.
Which the rule of thumb in that traditionally is you can pull 4% out of a portfolio. So at $1 million, that'd be 40 grand. You're rounding down. Just for our friends in compliance that we're kind of explaining all of this. This is a long-standing financial guideline. This is not something that we've just come up with today on the show. And historically, when they've stress tested this, a portfolio that is 60% stocks and bonds, you can withdraw 4% from that. And there's lots of reading that you can do on this subject with our friends at Google and Perplexity and,
Oh, absolutely.
Fidelity and Schwab and everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the 4% rule in effect is a retirement withdrawal strategy that suggests that you can safely withdraw 4% each year with a slight adjustment for inflation for 30 years.
Right. We are suggesting
that as
thing.
a guideline, right?
A
As
guideline.
a guideline. So to just kind of put that in dollars and cents, that means it takes about $1 million to generate $3,000 a month with a little bit of inflation for 30 years. So
not a small conversation.
if we're trying to
That's
replace,
that's a pretty big barrel.
it's a big barrel.
The way you like to spend money,
Absolutely.
or used to,
Used to. I still like.
except at the Bandon Dunes Pro Shop.
I was going to say we did good at the Bandon Dunes Pro Shop. I spent more for the experience of Bandon Dunes that I did at the Pro Shop, though. That's the good news. I will say my spending has shifted more to the experiential side than the consuming stuff side. Although the stuff that we do get to consume at Bandon is very reflective of the experience, and it just makes me feel good when I wear it.
Understood.
It just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
When you think about how much I need to replace $10,000 a month, do the math on that one for me, Stanley. How big does the later barrel need to be?
I can't do that off the top of my head.
That's somewhere
That's in the
around
$3.5
million.
$3.5 to $4.
Yeah. That's a lot of money to replace $10,000 a month. And to do that requires a significant amount of savings and discipline in that later barrel. And this is where you're going to potentially want to take a little bit more risk than you might take in some of the other barrels.
But I have to say this because I know our listeners and how they're thinking right now. I can't do that right now. I can't allocate that kind of money, Matthew, to the later barrel right now. Who can? So what you got to do is you've got to set aside whatever you do have today in that barrel, but you have to, this is where the planning comes in because that money's going to grow and it has 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 years of compounding.
Yeah. Anybody who says to me they can't right now, we all have choices we're going to make. Right? We all have choices. And I don't know if we've talked about this yet on the show. I mean, here you and I are talking about how we allocate barrels for different time frames in life. And we talk about this in terms of retirement. But what is retirement really? And I'm not trying to get down a different tangent and a different lane here, but you're right. How many people have the ability to save $4 or $5 million to replace their current income today? Very small. But I would say the majority of our tribe, the business owners that we get to interact with who have created incredible businesses, assuming they can have a liquidity event that turns that business into cash money that they can then live off of for the rest of their lives. But the vast majority of Americans do not have the ability.
Oh, it's at least 95%.
To save that kind of money to replace that kind of income.
Well, they're also not going to have that kind of lifestyle.
Sure.
Right? They're not going to have $10,000 a month kind of lifestyles. Now, we live in a funny place where that is not, if you live on the left or the right coast of the United States in a major metropolitan city.
That's middle class,
That
brother.
is not asking for, champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
No. There was a San Francisco Chronicle article, boy, I want to say within the last 3 or 4 days that I saw in my news feed.
Is that a newspaper?
It is.
What's that?
A newspaper. It's one of those things that you open up when you're sitting on the train going to work every day.
Oh, I remember watching those in the old movies.
Blast from the past.
Yeah.
In the digital version of the Chronicle, the annual income required to buy a home in the 10 most expensive cities in the state of California, San Jose being number 1, requires you to earn to buy a home in San Jose. I'm not going to tell you yet. Take a guess. Take a guess. How much income to buy a home in San Jose today?
$312,000.
You're close. $364,000. And then San Francisco and San Mateo and and all the way down the list. The average income in the state of California to be able to buy a home today is just north of $200,000. That's different than many other areas in the country. So realize that you and I have a little bias as we're sitting here talking about money barrels
Sure.
and how much we need to save.
Sure.
That's why I'm just, if your goal is to replace $10,000 a month, which is $120,000 a year spendable, which is probably somebody who's earning about $200,000 a year on a gross basis and living in the state of California, to replace that income requires you to save damn near $5 million in that later barrel.
Well, don't forget our friends at Social Security.
Ooh, yeah,
They're going to help a little,
they're going to help a little.
more than most people think in our
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe we don't have to save quite as much. But again, if the income we're trying to replace is that amount besides Social Security, we know that for every $3,000 a month we want to save for, it's $1 million in the later barrel.
At some point.
Yes. So I think this is a good segue
Yeah.
and transition to how do we figure out how aggressive, I mean, we've talked a lot about risk, you and I being risk managers. How do we figure out the amount of risk we should be taking between these different barrels? You and I have come across a pretty cool tool.
We are
Let's
only,
tee it up a little.
maybe 30, 40 miles from,
One of the greatest technologies ever created in our business, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
yeah. And there's a little bit of a tech hub that's going on here in
Yeah, who would
Greater
have thought?
Sac. This company is actually based up in Auburn, and they're called Nitrogen. They've recently gone through a rebranding and a renaming. They used to be called Riskalyze when we first met them, when the earth was cooling. And they, in our humble opinion, have cracked the code on how do you assess and measure risk.
And not just risk in your portfolio, but how much risk you should be taking, right? We've talked about the different kinds of risk calculations, right? It's calculating how much risk you want to take, how much risk you should be taking, and how much risk you actually are taking.
Yeah.
And their software can help you do all of that.
Yeah, and I don't recall how long we've been using it, but it's been a long time.
Yes.
And I got to think by now we've taken hundreds of clients through this.
Yes.
And the big takeaway that we've observed, is that more often than not, people are taking more risk with their investments than A, they're aware of, and B, they're comfortable with.
Sure.
So they come in
Agreed.
going faster in the left lane than they would be comfortable with. And I mean, we have a client right now I'm meeting with on Friday that's actually the opposite of that.
Right. They're not going fast enough.
They're not going fast enough.
Right.
And I've told them this, that that's very rare. They're 1 in 10.
Well, there's
So we
probably
actually-
probably some 2008 bias there with that client.
Hangover, sure.
Yeah.
So we have to actually kind of turn up some of the risk in their portfolio. And we've just gone through, our new colleague, Janine, has helped us create their money barrel situation. And it's been fun to talk about and
Yeah.
kind of kick it around, because it's like, okay, well, actually they got to goose up what is his company 401k allocation to be a little bit more aggressive, because that's not money they're going to use for probably 10 years.
Smart. So what Nitrogen has created is incredibly unique. In full disclosure, we get nothing from Nitrogen.
No, we
talking
pay
about
them.
This. We're actually
subscribers.
of theirs. So this
we
is not.
can't even get a ham sandwich.
Well, there's a really good deli down the street from their office.
Yeah,
we have to pay
we'll
for it
pay for it,
ourselves,
yeah.
but it's a good ham sandwich. What Nitrogen has done, we're going to show you how to go use their software here in a second. They've created something very unique. They've created a way to measure risk from an emotional standpoint. Literally, they've created a way to quantify and measure what it feels like to lose money. In effect, that right side of the brain that has all the emotion in it, they've figured out a way to tap into that by taking you into a scenario where you have to feel for a moment what it feels like to lose money. Full disclosure, again, it's not the most comfortable process. It's a fun little game, but it takes you to a place of what does it feel like to lose money?
As they define, what they ask you is to define a devastating loss in your portfolio.
Right, and whoever wants to sit there envisioning
Do you think about that on Friday nights?
a devastating loss, not usually. I save those for Sunday mornings.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets me ready for my week. It
Nice.
gets me up on my toes and motivates me to go to work on Monday. You too, right?
Nice.
So once it's able to help us feel what loss feels like, it then quantifies it and assigns a value to it. And what makes that so cool is you can then take your IRA, your 401k, your little stock portfolio at your favorite financial advisor's office, and you can upload it into the software, and it scores the risk on that portfolio and allows you the opportunity to do a little comparison of how much risk I'd like to be taking versus how much risk I am currently taking. And it becomes an incredible tool for you and your financial advisor to now sit down and have a real good dialogue about risk, maybe for the first time. So where can you use the tool?
It's going to be on our website.
Oh, fantastic.
We're going to put a button, hopefully right on the homepage, yourfinancialsobriety.com.
Yeah, it'll be right under financial sobriety.
It'll be something like, what's my risk score?
What's my risk score?
And you'll click on that, and it'll walk you through the exercise. It's going to ask you anywhere from 7 to 15 if-then scenarios, kind of an A scenario or a B scenario, and you choose. And our advice will be the same to you as it is to everyone that sits in our conference room doing this. Think less, feel more. Intuitively go with your thought, your answer. Don't think your answer. That has been some of the best coaching when we're there doing it with clients, because otherwise they get in their head and they're like, well, what if, it's no, I could probably, no, stop. Just answer it emotionally, right?
Yeah. What comes to you right away?
Yes.
I either want A or I want B,
Yeah.
and don't think about it. Just go.
Yeah.
So we've kind of been spending more time than we ever promised the tribe we ever would in this conversation of money and investing. But the time kind of presented itself where the bond market became attractive again. The stock market is hitting all-time highs. Again. So risk is just on fire again, which kind of led us into a conversation about how to hedge some of that risk with buffered ETFs. And then ultimately, how do we allocate between stocks and bonds and buffered ETFs and cash based on the timelines that we need the money. And of course, this wonderful new risk tool, well, not so new to us, but new to the tribe, brought to you by Nitrogen, that will help us decide how much risk with each barrel we should be taking. This has kind of been fun, doing a little bit more money talk than we were used to doing.
And the timeliness of it is, I think, vital because, as we said on the bond episode, we are living in a year of maximum uncertainty.
Yes.
So this is a backdrop of maximum uncertainty about an election, maximum uncertainty with 2 different wars that are going on. Just there's a lot of stress. And this is a way to help kind of get you in your own foxhole doing what you can do to improve your own peace of mind and designing a portfolio that is really built around a position of strength.
There it is. That's what I was waiting for you to say, because that's what it is. It's approaching all of this from a position of strength, so you're not surprised by anything. I mean, think about the risk you're taking as a business owner with your business, with the passions that you pursue in life. You're taking so much risk that you're aware of with your business. The real risk here is the risk you're not aware of.
Sure.
Inside of your investment portfolio.
Sure, 100%.
Right? You're brilliant at creating wealth. Our job here on the whole wealth journey at Financial Sobriety is just kind of helping you become aware of how you protect some of that wealth as you create it. That's what you and I believe, are the very best in the world at. We are so grateful to be surrounded by all of these brilliant wealth creators within our tribe, that to share a little bit of assistance, guidance, suggestions, take them or leave them, a little bit of blind spotting on how to protect that wealth you're creating. It's our honor to serve, and we love the job we get to do. So if anything we've talked about today scratched an itch, tickled a nerve, go to the website, download the Money Barrels piece under My Resources, check out the new link that we have on the homepage to get your risk score. And if you want to talk further, pick up the phone. We love telephone conversations. 877-283-9150.
And with that,
that's a wrap. If you like what you heard, leave us a review and be sure to subscribe. And check out our website, yourfinancialsobriety.com. Thanks again for listening today. Here to help you find more clarity, confidence, and capability along your journey into financial sobriety. I'm Matthew Grishman.
And I'm Jim Gebhardt.
Be intentional with your money.
Jim Gebhardt is a registered representative of and securities offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, member SIPC. Jim Gebhardt and Matthew Grishman are investment advisor representatives of Gebhardt Group Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, and Gebhardt Group Incorporated are not affiliated. The opinions in this podcast are for informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or investment recommendations. To determine which investments or financial advice may be appropriate for you, consult a financial advisor prior to investing. Any reference to market performance is based on historical information, and there is no expressed or implied guarantee of future performance. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of Brokers International Financial Services, LLC. The topics discussed and opinions given are not intended to address the specific needs of any listener. Gebhardt Group Incorporated does not offer legal or tax advice. Listeners are encouraged to discuss their financial needs with the appropriate professional regarding your individual circumstance.